Billionaire's girlfriend insults his black maid. The revenge she takes will leave you speechless. Mark, a successful billionaire CEO, lived a life many envied, surrounded by luxury, power, and privilege. His girlfriend, Rachel, came from a wealthy family, and to her, status and appearance meant everything. One evening, during a dinner party at Mark's mansion, Rachel made an offhand, insulting remark about Lisa, Mark's maid of many years. Lisa, a woman with quiet dignity and hard work, was visibly hurt but didn't react. She kept her head high, continuing her duties with poise. Mark, though, felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He'd never seen Rachel speak so cruelly, especially to someone who had been a loyal part of his household for so long. He wanted to speak up, but the moment passed. As Lisa excused herself from the room, Mark couldn't shake the thought that something had changed inside him, and in his view of Rachel. Would this incident be forgotten, or would it be the start of something more? The next few days were filled with tension for Lisa. She didn't bring up Rachel's comment, but it lingered like an unspoken cloud in the household. Lisa's strength had always been in her ability to rise above challenges. She had faced discrimination and harsh judgment in her life, but she never let it define her. Instead, she channeled her energy into her work, always striving for excellence, knowing that her value wasn't in the eyes of those who looked down on her, but in the integrity of her actions. However, there was something different this time. Rachel's words stung more than others. This wasn't just a random insult, it was a direct attack on her worth as a person, as someone who worked tirelessly to maintain the elegance and grace of Mark's home. But Lisa knew that retaliating in anger wouldn't get her anywhere. Instead, she decided to take a different approach, one that would not only make her stronger but also force Mark to truly see her. Over the next few days, Lisa continued to work quietly, but there was a newfound confidence in her demeanor. She began to go above and beyond her usual tasks, handling everything with such meticulous care that the entire household took notice. She organized events with grace, managed the staff efficiently, and ensured that everything ran smoothly, even under pressure. Mark, who had been distracted by his business ventures, started to notice Lisa's increasing presence in the household. He couldn't ignore the quiet strength she exuded, nor could he deny that she had become an indispensable part of his life. One evening, as Mark was going over some important documents in his study, he overheard Rachel complaining to a friend on the phone about how the staff, especially Lisa, had become too comfortable and were taking advantage of their position. Rachel's voice was full of frustration, her words dripping with condescension as she spoke about Lisa's rise in confidence. That conversation hit Mark like a slap to the face. He had always known Rachel had a sharp tongue, but hearing her speak so dismissively about someone he had trusted and relied upon for years made him uncomfortable. It was then that Mark realized how much he had taken Lisa for granted. She was not just an employee, she was the backbone of his household, the one who kept everything running smoothly, and the one who had always been there when he needed her most. Mark's feelings began to shift. The realization was gradual, like the slow turning of a ship. He started to question his relationship with Rachel. Could he continue to be with someone who showed such disregard for the people who helped make his life easier? He knew he had to have a conversation with Rachel, but he didn't quite know how to approach it yet. Meanwhile, Lisa's change in behavior didn't go unnoticed in the office. As Mark started to focus more on his business, he realized that Lisa's contributions extended far beyond her role at home. She had been the one who helped manage his company's private events, keeping the high-profile clients happy with her charm and professionalism. Mark's colleagues began praising her work ethic, and some even started to suggest that she could take on more responsibilities at the company. Lisa, who had always been quiet about her ambitions, realized that this was her chance. She wasn't just a maid anymore, she was a woman of substance, someone who could contribute on a much larger scale. With each passing day, she strategically positioned herself to be seen as a leader, helping with meetings, offering solutions, and proving that she was more than capable. Mark was beginning to see Lisa in a new light. It wasn't just about the work she did for him anymore, it was about who she was as a person, strong, capable, and deserving of respect. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that he couldn't ignore the shift in his perception of her. Rachel, on the other hand, remained oblivious. She continued her lavish lifestyle, unbothered by the changes happening around her, still clinging to the belief that her wealth and status were the most important things in the world. But Mark was starting to wonder if he was truly happy in this relationship. He began to realize that he had been living a life of luxury and superficiality, disconnected from the people who mattered most. The question now was, would Mark confront his own biases and take action, or would he continue to let his relationship with Rachel cloud his judgment? Lisa's quiet strength and the power of her work ethic had begun to challenge everything Mark thought he knew about loyalty, worth, and respect. Weeks passed, and the tension between Lisa, Mark, and Rachel continued to grow, though it was subtle. Mark, while still in a relationship with Rachel, couldn't help but feel the pull towards the quiet strength of Lisa. As the days went by, he witnessed more of Lisa's dedication and integrity. The shift in his perspective was clear. He saw her as more than just someone who worked for him. She was now someone who stood out because of her kindness, professionalism, and grace. One evening, during a corporate event Mark hosted at his estate, Lisa was in charge of managing everything from the catering to the staff coordination. The night was important, with high-profile guests, but Lisa handled it all with calm and efficiency. She didn't ask for any recognition, didn't demand praise. She simply did her job flawlessly, something that made her all the more remarkable. As the event wrapped up, Mark found himself alone with Lisa, admiring her ability to navigate the complex evening. He hadn't expected to feel this sense of admiration for someone he'd once only viewed as an employee. "Lisa, I have to say, you really outdid yourself tonight," Mark said, his voice full of appreciation. Lisa smiled, her usual modest demeanor never wavering. "Thank you, Mr. Mark. I just did what needed to be done." That was when Rachel entered the room, visibly irritated, complaining about how the event had run too late. The way she spoke to Mark was dismissive and rude, but when she turned her gaze to Lisa, her tone became biting. "How long are you going to keep her around, Mark?" she asked. "She's not even one of us. She's just a maid." Mark's face hardened, but he didn't react immediately. The words stung, and something deep inside him snapped. He had been letting Rachel's superiority complex slide for far too long. As Rachel continued to complain, Mark stood up, his mind made up. "Rachel, that's enough," Mark said, his voice firm, surprising even himself. "Lisa is more than just a maid. She's an essential part of this company, and I've come to respect her more than you could ever know." Rachel was taken aback, her eyes widening. Mark's sudden shift in tone was not lost on her, and in that moment, she knew that something had changed. Mark's respect for Lisa had reached a point where he could no longer tolerate the way Rachel was treating her. That evening, after the guests had left, Mark made a decision that would change everything. He took Lisa aside and offered her a position at the company, something far beyond the role she'd had before. He saw her potential, her brilliance, and he realized that the time had come for him to act on it. But the bigger realization was that Mark had to confront his own life and what he truly valued. Was it the superficial world Rachel represented, or the genuine respect and connection he had found with someone like Lisa? As Mark extended his offer, Lisa's surprise was palpable. She had always respected him, but now, in this moment, she saw that her hard work had not gone unnoticed. However, the true power of the moment lay not in the offer itself, but in Mark's willingness to stand up for what was right. This was only the beginning. The story was about to take a turn, and it was clear that Rachel's place in Mark's life was no longer guaranteed. The days following Mark's decision to offer Lisa a promotion were tense. He spent time reflecting on what it all meant, not just for his relationship with Lisa, but also for his life. He'd been so caught up in the superficial allure of his wealth and status that he hadn't truly seen the value in the people around him, until now. As Lisa settled into her new role, she continued to impress him, but it was the way she carried herself with dignity and strength that left a lasting impact on him. Rachel, on the other hand, wasn't pleased. Her attitude became colder, and she made it clear to Mark that she wasn't happy with his decision to promote Lisa. One evening, after yet another tense dinner with Rachel at his home, Mark couldn't ignore the reality any longer. Rachel's jealousy and condescending behavior towards Lisa had reached a breaking point. As they sat in the living room, sipping wine, Rachel's voice broke the silence. You really think it's a good idea to have her so close to you, Mark? Her tone was sharp, full of disdain. She's just a maid. She doesn't belong in your world, in your business. Mark put his glass down, his expression serious. Rachel, that's enough. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I need to be honest with you. Lisa has earned her place in this company, and she's shown more integrity and loyalty than anyone else. I don't expect you to understand, but that's the truth. Rachel stared at him, stunned. You're choosing her over me, she asked, disbelief in her voice. I'm not choosing anyone over anyone, Rachel, Mark replied, his voice calm but resolute. I'm choosing respect, honesty, and kindness. I've realized those are the things that matter most to me. And I can't keep ignoring the fact that your behavior towards Lisa, and frankly towards me, hasn't been respectful. There was a long silence as Rachel processed his words. Her face flushed with anger, but Mark didn't flinch. He wasn't going to back down this time. Rachel's manipulation and entitlement had become too much for him to ignore. Maybe it's time for us to take a step back, Mark continued. I think we both need space to figure out what we really want. Rachel's anger flared, but she was speechless. For the first time, Mark had stood up to her. It was clear to both of them that the relationship had reached its end. That night, Mark felt a sense of peace. He had made the right choice, but he knew there was still work to be done. Lisa's quiet strength had opened his eyes to the kind of person he wanted to be, someone who valued authenticity, hard work, and respect above all else. And in the weeks that followed, Mark began to see his life in a new light. With Lisa's support, he took steps to change the culture of his company, making it more inclusive, compassionate, and driven by real values. The change wasn't immediate, but it was real, and it was the beginning of something better for everyone involved. Mark's decision to break up with Rachel wasn't an easy one, but in the weeks that followed, he realized it was the right choice. Without her, there was room for growth, both in his personal life and his business. His relationship with Lisa evolved too. What started as professional respect blossomed into a genuine friendship. Lisa's quiet wisdom had changed him in ways he never expected. Mark began to see his company differently. It wasn't just about the bottom line anymore, it was about the people who made it all possible. The staff who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, like Lisa, were the backbone of everything he had built. In a company-wide meeting, Mark publicly acknowledged Lisa's contributions, celebrating her hard work and dedication. She stood proudly, surrounded by applause, and for the first time, Mark realized how much he had overlooked before. Lisa's rise from maid to an integral part of the company was a testament to the power of resilience, dignity, and self-respect. Her subtle revenge had never been about proving anything to Mark, it was about showing herself the respect she deserved. As for Mark, he had learned an invaluable lesson. True worth is not determined by appearances or status, but by the character and integrity of the people around you. In the end, the lesson that Rachel had failed to grasp became the foundation of Mark's success, both as a businessman and as a person. Mark finally understood what Lisa had known all along, that sometimes the quietest voices are the most powerful, and that true strength lies in remaining kind, no matter the circumstances. It was a lesson he would carry with him, forever changed. Months passed, and Mark's life had changed profoundly. His relationship with Lisa deepened into mutual respect and understanding. She had become not only an invaluable asset to his company but also a trusted friend. Through her, Mark learned what it meant to lead with integrity and compassion, qualities he had previously overlooked in favor of wealth and appearances. One day, Lisa approached Mark with a proposal. She wanted to use her new position to mentor others in the company, giving them the same opportunities she had earned. Mark wholeheartedly agreed. He was no longer the man who had once dismissed the value of those working quietly behind the scenes. Mark finally confronted his past, realizing the toxic influence Rachel had had on him. He learned that wealth and status were not enough to bring happiness or fulfillment. True success, he now knew, was about the people who stood by you, not the ones who looked down on others. As he stood with Lisa in the company's boardroom, he realized how far he had come. The respect and admiration he had for Lisa were immeasurable, and he was determined to ensure that the culture at his company reflected the values of respect, kindness, and inclusivity that she had taught him. The story had come full circle. Mark had learned to value the quiet strength in others, and in return, they had transformed his life in ways he never imagined. He was no longer just the CEO of a successful business. He had become a better man.